She pointed at him like he was a trespasser. "Sir, you clearly don't belong in first class. Please, move." Nathaniel Carter froze. His boarding pass said 1A. His company owned the airline. And yet, here he was, being asked to leave his seat by a flight attendant who never bothered to check her facts. Across the aisle, champagne was served to the woman who had taken his seat without question. What happened next wasn't a scene. It was a reckoning. Because when Nathaniel made the call, everything changed. Boarding halted, policies collapsed, and the skies would never look the same again. Nathaniel Carter adjusted the strap of his backpack and stepped onto Flight 2207 bound for New York. He looked like any middle-aged traveler on a late Thursday flight. Gray hoodie, jeans, black sneakers, and a tired gaze. Nothing about his appearance hinted at the 8-figure business deal he had just closed hours earlier, or the fact that his company held a controlling interest in the very airline he was boarding. He preferred it that way. He wasn't here for attention, just a quiet ride across the country and a few hours of sleep before another day of executive decisions and industry-shaping conversations. The hum of the cabin, the polite chatter of passengers, the gentle overhead announcements. It all formed a predictable rhythm he'd grown used to after decades of travel. As he reached the first-class cabin, he glanced at his boarding pass again. Seat 1A. The seat, his seat, was already occupied. A woman in a white cashmere coat sat there with her legs elegantly crossed, sipping from a flute of champagne. Her Louis Vuitton carry-on was crammed into the overhead bin above, pushing against another passenger's suitcase. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. She didn't look up. Nathaniel paused, confused but not alarmed. Mistakes happened. Perhaps she was in the wrong seat. He cleared his throat gently and began, "Excuse me, I believe—" "Sir, can I help you?" a voice interrupted. He turned. Clara Jennings stood just behind him. Late 50s, pressed uniform, crisp hair bun, and an authoritative presence that had probably calmed thousands of nervous flyers. She wore the kind of smile that looked professional from afar, but brittle up close. "Yes," Nathaniel said politely. "I believe there's been a mistake. My seat—" Before he could finish, Clara raised a hand and pointed squarely at him. "Sir, please vacate this area. You clearly don't belong in first class." The words didn't register at first. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Not as a request, not even as a misunderstanding. It was a directive. Final. Cold. Nathaniel blinked, momentarily stunned. "I'm sorry." Clara gestured to the aisle. "You need to step aside. We have boarding to complete, and this seat is occupied." "I understand," he said, holding up his boarding pass. "But this is my seat, 1A. Confirmed." Clara didn't take the pass. She didn't look at it. Her eyes scanned his hoodie, his backpack, his skin. "I don't think so," she replied. "I'm going to ask you one last time to step out of first class." Heads began to turn. Conversations paused. Nathaniel felt the shift in the air, the subtle, unmistakable tension of something going wrong in a place where everyone pretended everything was always fine. "Is there a problem?" asked a younger flight attendant, Ben Miller, judging by the name tag, as he approached, looking between Clara and Nathaniel. Clara didn't even glance at him. "No problem," she said. "Just a passenger trying to sit in a seat that isn't his." Lindsay finally looked up. She gave Nathaniel a once-over, slow and deliberate. "Oh," she said with a tight smile. "There must be some confusion. I always book 1A. Perhaps you're supposed to be back there." She motioned vaguely toward economy. Nathaniel stood motionless, not angry, not even embarrassed, just stunned. "I'm not trying to cause a scene," he said calmly. "I'd just like to sit in the seat I purchased." "Sir," Clara cut in sharply, "we've had enough. I'm going to need you to return to the main cabin while we sort this out." Ben stepped forward again, quieter this time. "Let me check the manifest," he offered, pulling out his tablet. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Ben, we don't need to involve you in this." But it was too late. Ben was already tapping through the screen. Nathaniel still hadn't moved. The backpack over one shoulder, the boarding pass still in hand, his voice still low. "If there's a mistake, I'm happy to resolve it, but I'm not leaving until someone verifies the assignment." Lindsay rolled her eyes. "This is absurd. Some people just don't understand how seating works." A few passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Someone 2 rows back began recording with their phone. Ben glanced up from his tablet, his brows furrowed. "According to the manifest, Mr. Carter is assigned to seat 1A. Clara didn't move. "That can't be right." Ben showed her the screen. "It's in the system." "I'll double-check with the gate," Clara muttered, turning abruptly and walking toward the front of the plane. Lindsay took another sip of champagne, unbothered. "Must be a glitch." Nathaniel finally took a seat. Not 1A, but in the jump seat by the galley, waiting. He could have pushed, could have raised his voice, but instead, he reached for his phone and typed a short message. "Echo alert. Discrepancy on 2207. Begin passive documentation. No response yet." Across the cabin, Lindsay snapped a selfie. Behind her, the camera caught the silent figure of a man who had been told, loudly, publicly, and without question, that he did not belong. What Lindsay didn't know, what Clara had failed to check, and what Ben had only just begun to sense, was that Flight 2207 wasn't just carrying a passenger. It was carrying a reckoning. And Nathaniel Carter, chairman of Stratus Aviation Holdings, wasn't just along for the ride. Nathaniel remained in the galley jump seat, posture calm but eyes sharp. Around him, the hum of boarding continued. A chorus of zipping suitcases, idle conversation, and the rustle of coats. But within first class, the air still felt thick with tension. His boarding pass rested on his knee like a silent protest. Ben Miller returned, holding his tablet and looking conflicted. He hovered near Clara, who had resumed greeting other first-class passengers with a forced smile. She hadn't acknowledged Nathaniel since her brusque dismissal. Ben leaned in, voice low. "Clara, I double-checked the manifest. Carter is booked for 1A. Clara didn't look up. "I said we'll check again. He can wait." Ben hesitated. His eyes drifted to Nathaniel, then back to Clara. "But it's in the system. I think we should—" Clara cut him off with a glance so sharp it could slice steel. "We don't make seating changes based on guesses and glitches, Ben. And frankly, I don't appreciate being second-guessed in front of passengers." Nathaniel stood. Calmly, deliberately. He stepped forward and extended the boarding pass again, this time directly to Ben. "Here, seat 1A, scanned and confirmed at the gate." Ben took it without hesitation, his brow furrowed as he compared it to his tablet. "It matches exactly. Full fare, first class, no indication of error." Nathaniel looked over at Clara. "So," Clara offered a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're still waiting on confirmation from the gate agent. System errors happen all the time. Please be patient, sir." It was the way she said, "sir," that did it. Clipped, controlled, as though she were swallowing something bitter. "I understand," Nathaniel replied, voice smooth. "But I'd appreciate being treated like a paying passenger, not a stowaway." Clara turned away, muttering, "Please step aside until we verify your information." The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop by a few degrees. A few passengers had begun whispering. Some were watching openly now. Others avoided eye contact entirely, the way people did when they sensed injustice but didn't want to be involved. Ben handed the boarding pass back, sheepish. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. I believe you. I'm just not in charge." "I know," Nathaniel replied gently. "But you did the right thing checking." A flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, passed over Ben's face. In 1A, Lindsay scrolled her phone lazily, pretending not to hear a thing. Occasionally, she'd glance toward Nathaniel with mild irritation, as though his very presence was delaying her important day. Nathaniel returned to the jump seat. He texted again. "Delay confirmed. Clara resisting system data. Keep monitoring. Echo continues." Minutes passed, then more. Still no word from the gate agent. Clara busied herself chatting with a couple in 2B and 2C, laughing at a joke the husband made about in-flight wine. Ben approached again quietly. Still nothing from the gate? Clara shook her head. No. And until we hear otherwise, she's staying put. She? Ben asked, confused. Clara didn't answer. She just kept smiling. Nathaniel stood again, not confrontational, just firm. "Miss Jennings," he said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I've now provided verified documentation that this is my seat. The system reflects that. Your crew has confirmed that. I'd like to know why I'm still being denied access." Clara's smile vanished. "Sir, please lower your voice." "My voice is already low," he replied. "I'm speaking clearly, not loudly." "You're creating a scene." "No," he said, tone still calm. "You are. By refusing to do what the data already confirms." The woman across the aisle, mid-50s, business suit, pearls, shifted uncomfortably and leaned toward her husband. He shook his head but said nothing. A man in row 3 pulled out his phone and started recording discreetly. Lindsay finally looked up. "You're still here?" Nathaniel didn't respond. Clara sighed theatrically. "Fine. Ben, go check again. See what Gate has to say." Ben moved quickly. Nathaniel exhaled slowly, grounding himself. He didn't want this to become a confrontation. He wanted to sit down, put in his noise-canceling headphones, and disappear for 5 hours. But the rules were clear. The systems were digital. There was no ambiguity. And yet, he remained standing. He glanced around the cabin. A few passengers smiled awkwardly. Others refused to meet his gaze. The silence felt louder than any shouted insult. Ben returned 2 minutes later. "Gate confirms. Carter is 1A. Lindsay Caldwell was on standby upgrade list, but wasn't cleared." Clara's face didn't flinch. Ben looked at her, almost pleading. "It's confirmed. What now?" Clara turned to Nathaniel. "Sir, we've resolved the confusion. However, due to the situation and to maintain a comfortable environment for our guests, we'd like to offer you a seat in premium economy." There it was. Nathaniel blinked. "You want me to give up my confirmed first-class seat to keep someone else comfortable?" Clara didn't answer directly. "It's just a courtesy. You'll receive compensation, of course." Lindsay chimed in. "Honestly, it's not a big deal. Some people just don't understand how things work up here." There was an audible gasp from the older woman in row 2. Ben froze. Clara ignored it. Nathaniel didn't. "No," he said clearly. "I'll take the seat I purchased." Lindsay laughed. Brittle. "You're seriously going to make everyone wait just to prove some point?" Nathaniel looked her in the eyes. "No, I'm making sure the point doesn't get lost." Clara's voice hardened. "Sir, if you continue this disruption, we may have to involve airport security." Another shift in the cabin atmosphere. Ben took a step back, hands slightly raised. "Maybe we should de-escalate." Nathaniel said nothing. He sat down, not in 1A, but back in the jump seat again. Calm, composed. But inside, the temperature was changing. Not for him, for the airline, for everyone watching, for whatever was coming next. And still, no justice. Only a small flicker of hope. The click of heels echoed down the narrow aisle as Clara Jennings walked ahead, stiff-backed and silent. Behind her, Nathaniel Carter followed, calm on the surface, but inside, something deep began to shift. Not rage, not humiliation. Something colder, more calculating. The kind of clarity that only came when someone pushed you 1 inch too far. Passengers turned as he passed, some pretending not to notice, others staring openly. A few tilted their heads, eyes narrowing, trying to figure out what he had done to deserve being escorted like this. Clara stopped at the very last row of economy, just 2 seats from the restroom and right next to the service galley. She turned and motioned toward a cramped aisle seat. "This will be your temporary accommodation," she said, voice clipped. Nathaniel looked at the seat. It was half blocked by an oversized bag in the overhead, barely reclined, and bore the unmistakable scent of disinfectant mingled with something vaguely chemical. The lavatory door beside it creaked every few seconds as the cleaning crew continued pre-boarding prep. "This isn't even in the same cabin class," Nathaniel said flatly. Clara raised her chin. "We're doing our best given the situation. You'll be reimbursed." He held her gaze for a long moment, letting the silence do the talking. Then he nodded once and sat down. Not because he accepted it, because he was watching. Clara left without another word. 3 rows up, a young man with a laptop open on his tray table discreetly angled his phone toward the aisle. The red recording dot glowed faintly. His fingers hovered near the touchscreen, adjusting the angle just enough to capture both Nathaniel and the lavatory door. He didn't say a word. Lindsay Caldwell, meanwhile, had stretched comfortably across her stolen seat in first class, swirling champagne and chatting amiably with another passenger. Her laugh was light, airy, and just loud enough to be heard over the hum of boarding. Nathaniel pulled out his phone, typed slowly. "Protocol Echo. Document everything. Start soft." He slid the phone back into his pocket, leaned back, and closed his eyes, not to rest, but to listen. Footsteps, shuffling bags, whispered conversations, and, from 3 rows ahead, a whisper. "Did you see that? They moved him. I think he was in first. Wasn't he the one with the seat mix-up?" He looked so calm. Nathaniel wasn't calm. He was patient. There was a difference. Ben Miller passed by a few minutes later, his eyes catching Nathaniel's for a moment. His lips pressed into a tight line. No words, just acknowledgement, regret. Ben didn't linger. Nathaniel glanced toward the window, watching the baggage carts scurry like beetles on the tarmac below. The plane hadn't pushed back yet. That meant there was still time, still options. His fingers tapped gently on the armrest, not from anxiety, but calculation. His mind was already running scenarios, timelines, communications. If Clara Jennings wanted to test his patience, she was going to learn what it meant when a man like him decided to respond. From the front of the plane, a new voice came over the cabin speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're just finalizing a few seating adjustments and waiting on final clearance before departure. Thank you for your patience." Adjustments. A polite euphemism. Nathaniel exhaled quietly. Not yet. He waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He reached for his phone again. "Echo log timestamped. Video confirmation active. Press not notified. Yet." He paused, then added, "Wait for sequence Delta if denied again." He didn't need to check the response. He knew it would be received. In the row across from him, a teenage girl looked at him curiously, nudging her mother. The woman glanced at Nathaniel, then quickly away. The girl kept looking, then quietly raised her phone and snapped a single photo. Nathaniel said nothing. This wasn't just a mishap anymore. This was becoming visible, and visibility changed everything. Up front, Lindsay requested another glass of champagne. Clara poured it with grace. Lindsay said something with a laugh, and Clara smiled tightly in return. Their ease was almost theatrical. Ben reappeared again, walking the aisle slowly. When he reached Nathaniel's row, he leaned down slightly. I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I tried to speak up again. She overrode me." Nathaniel studied him. "You did what you could." "No, I didn't," Ben admitted. "I followed orders." A pause. Then Ben added, "But I did see something on her phone. A message. She sent it to someone. Said, 'He's been moved. No resistance.'" Nathaniel's brow twitched. Just slightly. "You're sure?" Ben nodded. It was quick, but yeah. Nathaniel didn't answer. He simply nodded once. A signal. Ben moved on. Nathaniel opened his phone again. New message? "Clara is communicating externally. Trace recipient. Elevate echo to orange." He placed the phone face down. His heart wasn't racing. His breathing was steady, but his focus was razor sharp now. Something was happening beyond this cabin. Something coordinated. Clara's confidence wasn't born of ignorance. It came from instruction. That changed the game. And Nathaniel had spent a lifetime mastering games others didn't know they were playing. He sat quietly, listening. The captain's voice returned. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been asked to hold at the gate a few more minutes while the final issue is resolved. We appreciate your continued patience." The tone was different now, less rehearsed, tighter. Nathaniel allowed himself a small smile. It had begun. He wasn't angry about being moved. He was recording it. He wasn't seeking confrontation. He was collecting evidence. And the moment someone asked who Nathaniel Carter really was, they'd learn the cost of assuming someone's worth by the seat they sat in, or the color of their skin. Clara Jennings stood at the front galley, just behind the curtain separating first class from the boarding area. Her posture was composed, her face expressionless, but her hand, holding the phone just below eye level, was tense. She kept her voice low. "He's here. Yes, we moved him. No resistance." A short pause. Then she added, "We'll delay departure as long as we can. He's not causing a scene." The voice on the other end said something Clara didn't respond to right away. Her eyes flicked toward the front of the cabin, where Lindsay was now comfortably flipping through a glossy travel magazine, like she hadn't just displaced a man with a valid first-class ticket. "I understand," Clara finally said. "I'll report back when we're airborne." She ended the call, locked the phone, and slipped it into the small pocket of her uniform. The calm smile returned to her lips as she stepped back into first class, offering Lindsay a fresh towel and a refill of champagne. "Everything's under control," she said quietly. In the back of the plane, Nathaniel Carter stared at the illuminated seatbelt sign above him, but his mind was elsewhere, tracking movements, recalculating timelines, anticipating maneuvers. His instincts weren't just corporate, they were surgical. The kind that came from years of navigating hostile boardrooms, stealth acquisitions, and multi-billion-dollar chess games across industries. He knew control when he saw it, and he knew manipulation when he felt it. Clara's behavior wasn't reactive. It was methodical, and her confidence wasn't based on airline policy. It was coming from something or someone else. Nathaniel unlocked his phone, swiped through an encrypted app, and dialed a contact labeled Atlas. A moment later, a synthetic voice answered. "Go ahead." "Activate pre-check," Nathaniel said evenly. "Full authority hold." A pause. "Authority confirmed?" "Level 4, he replied. "My signal, my call." "Understood. Pre-check initiated. Systems on standby. Do you want surveillance escalation?" "Not yet," he said. "Just observe. No interference until I signal Echo Orange complete." "Copy. Tracking begins now." He ended the call and slid the phone into the seat-back pocket in front of him. Outside the window, the jet bridge was still attached, and ground crew were standing idly by. The delay was no longer casual. It was deliberate. The man across the aisle, who had earlier recorded him, now looked over. He hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "Hey," he whispered. "I saw what they did. I recorded it too. You were definitely listed on 1A. I saw the screen." Nathaniel met his eyes. "Thank you. I just thought someone should know, in case this turns into something." "It already has," Nathaniel said quietly. In first class, Lindsay snapped a photo of her glass and posted it to social media with the caption, "Finally in my happy place. Champagne and silence." The irony was as thick as the lemon-scented towel she dabbed her fingers with. Back at the front galley, Clara's phone vibrated again. She glanced at the message, smiled faintly, then walked back to Lindsay. "We'll be departing shortly," she said cheerfully. "Sorry for the confusion earlier." Lindsay smirked. "He's still back there?" Clara nodded once. "For now." Another message buzzed on Clara's phone, this time from a different thread. "Unknown contact. Make sure he doesn't move forward. Delay at least 15 minutes. Legal needs time." Clara's fingers paused over the screen. Legal needs time? She didn't question the message. That wasn't her role. Her job was simple. buy time, and maintain optics. She slipped the phone back into her pocket, adjusted her scarf, and returned to service mode. Meanwhile, Ben Miller was pacing slowly in the rear of the aircraft. He kept glancing toward Nathaniel, his expression more troubled than before. Finally, he approached. "I don't know if you want to hear this," Ben said quietly, crouching next to Nathaniel's seat. "But I saw her take a call." "Clara?" Nathaniel asked. Ben nodded. "It wasn't standard. She ducked behind the curtain, didn't log it, said something like, 'We moved him,' and 'no resistance.'" Nathaniel didn't react immediately. "Did she mention who she was speaking to?" "No, but she looked tense and too comfortable at the same time. Like it wasn't the first time," Nathaniel said flatly. Ben hesitated. "Yeah, exactly." Nathaniel gave a small nod. "Thank you for telling me. You've done more than most would." Ben looked over his shoulder. "I didn't sign up for this. I just wanted to work a decent job." Nathaniel smiled, just barely. "And now you've stepped into something bigger." Ben stood and walked back toward the front, stopping at the galley where Clara was speaking with another crew member. He didn't interrupt, just watched her. She didn't notice. Nathaniel leaned back, pulled out his phone again. New message. "Second confirmation of coordinated effort. Clara following external instruction. Possibly legal threat. Proceed with full Echo Orange sequence if blocked again." He typed back, "Wait, let them make one more move. Then we press." There was always a moment, right before people realized who he was, where they thought they had all the power. He let them enjoy it, let them get comfortable. Because the moment you exposed systemic bias, the moment you caught it acting like no one was watching, that's when the power shifted. And this plane, it was already shifting. Outside, a fuel truck pulled away, but the jet bridge remained. The captain's voice returned, more strained now. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We've been asked to remain at the gate a little longer due to a manifest discrepancy. We appreciate your patience." Nathaniel didn't smile this time. He waited, because whoever was pulling the strings was about to learn that this wasn't a case of one man being inconvenienced. It was a case of one man quietly documenting every misstep. And when the time came, there would be no place for them to hide. Nathaniel Carter stared at the seat back in front of him, the sterile white of the laminated safety card peeking out from its pocket. The fluorescent cabin lights buzzed faintly overhead. The murmurs of passengers had risen slightly in pitch. Confusion was taking root. People were noticing that something wasn't right. It was time. He pulled out his phone again, this time accessing a different channel, a secure line used only in specific circumstances. He scrolled to a contact labeled simply J. Maddox. He tapped call. The line picked up after 2 rings. A woman's voice, sharp and composed. "Jennifer Maddox." "Jennifer," Nathaniel said evenly. "It's Carter. I'm on flight 2207, still at the gate. I need operational intervention." There was no pause. "Are you being detained or denied access?" "Not detained, but denied, deliberately." "First class?" "Yes. Seat 1A. Documented. Removed without cause." Another voice joined Jennifer's in the background, muffled but concerned. She spoke quickly into the receiver. "Tell ops to freeze boarding on 2207 immediately. No pushback until further notice." "Already done," Nathaniel confirmed. Jennifer returned her attention to the call. "You want protocol red line?" "Not yet," he replied. "Echo Orange is active, but I want surveillance authorization. All crew interactions logged from now." "Copy that," Jennifer said. "Do you have names?" Nathaniel's gaze shifted forward, catching sight of Clara as she moved through first class. "Clara Jennings, lead flight attendant. External communication confirmed. Also possible influence from legal." "You think this is coming from inside the company?" "I don't think," Nathaniel said. "I know." Jennifer's voice dropped into a near whisper. "We've suspected for weeks, but not on a flight this visible. I'll handle this." "Quietly," Nathaniel emphasized. "Always." The call ended. He tucked the phone away and folded his arms across his chest. From the corner of his eye, he saw the man with the laptop lift his phone again. Recording had resumed. 3 rows ahead, the teenage girl with the bright pink headphones glanced backward and nudged her mother. In first class, Lindsay Caldwell was beginning to feel the pressure. She had noticed the shifting glances, the raised eyebrows, the phones no longer hidden discreetly, but held just openly enough to send a message. She glanced at Clara. "Why are people filming me?" she hissed. Clara handed her a warm towel like nothing had changed. "Ignore them. This'll pass." "It doesn't feel like it's passing," Lindsay muttered. She looked behind her again and caught the eye of a woman in business class, late 50s, African American, dressed sharply in a tailored blazer. The woman didn't blink, didn't smile, just held her gaze long enough to let Lindsay feel the full weight of it. Lindsay turned back around quickly. Clara leaned in. "Everything's under control." "No, it's not," Lindsay snapped under her breath. "They're filming me. That man back there is probably sending this to a lawyer." Clara's face remained serene. "Then let him." Nathaniel watched the dynamic from behind. Lindsay's shoulders had tightened. Her body language no longer radiated entitlement. It radiated fear, and the other passengers were picking up on it. The silence was changing. It was no longer polite discomfort. It was anticipation. Clara retreated to the galley once more, pulled out her phone, and tapped into a messaging app. Message to unknown contact. "He made a call. Confirm to ops. You need to move fast. We're losing control." Across the tarmac, in an administrative office just beyond the jetway, Jennifer Maddox was already moving. She stood at a large operations console, speaking rapidly to a small team of supervisors. "Flag all communications from Flight 2207. Ground all digital logs. I want every crew action timestamped from 45 minutes prior to boarding." A young analyst glanced up. "Are we going public?" Jennifer didn't blink. "Not unless he says so." Back on the plane, Ben Miller walked slowly toward the rear again. He looked down at Nathaniel. "She's nervous," Ben whispered. "Lindsay's starting to lose it." "She should be," Nathaniel replied. "The curtain of protection is thinning. I don't know how much longer Clara can keep control," Ben added. "But I have to tell you something else." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "I overheard Clara on the phone earlier, before takeoff. She said something like, 'The target is neutralized, no resistance.'" "Target," Nathaniel repeated, his voice low. Ben nodded. "I thought it was weird too." It wasn't weird. It was tactical. Whoever Clara was talking to didn't see Nathaniel as a passenger. They saw him as an objective. Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ben. You've done enough." Ben hesitated. "I can keep helping." "You already have," Nathaniel replied. "Now let the system catch up." Ben returned to his duties, glancing once more at Clara as he passed her. She didn't look at him. The captain's voice returned, noticeably more strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently awaiting final confirmation for departure. We'll keep you updated." Lindsay's anxiety was now visible. Her legs were bouncing. Her phone sat forgotten in her lap. Passengers were watching. The man across from Nathaniel leaned in again. "Is this going to go viral?" Nathaniel's lips curled faintly. "That depends on what they do next." He opened his phone one more time. 2. Atlas. Green light level 2 trace. Full comms triangulation. External legal contact suspected. Pull internal metadata. The response came seconds later. Atlas. Confirmed. Trace initiated. Logs inbound. Legal flagged for cross-reference. And that was when Nathaniel Carter leaned back, exhaled slowly, and let the gears turn. He had called the right person. But this was just the beginning. The intercom clicked softly overhead, but there was no announcement. Instead, the captain's voice, subdued and precise, spoke only to the crew through the secure channel. "Flight deck to cabin. Ground operations has issued a full boarding hold. Maintain current positions. No pushback until cleared." Ben Miller, mid-walk down the aisle, paused. A hold at this stage wasn't normal. He glanced toward Clara, who stood in the galley near first class, arms folded, watching Lindsay sip another glass of champagne. Ben tapped the crew intercom near the service station. "Clara," he said quietly. "Ops just froze us. Full hold. Captain says no push until further notice." Clara's face barely changed, but her jaw tensed. "That's not possible." "It came straight from the bridge," Ben replied. "Confirmed by tower." She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out her phone and turned her back to the cabin. Thumbs moved quickly across the screen. Inside the terminal, Jennifer Maddox watched a digital map of the tarmac from her operations room. A blinking red icon now hovered over Flight 22207. Boarding status, frozen. Gate status, locked. Surveillance feed active. Phone data being triangulated. "Pull her comms," Jennifer told a nearby analyst. "Anything outside company channels, flag it." Back on the aircraft, Clara put her phone to her ear. She walked further into the crew-only galley and lowered her voice. "He's not staying put. There are phones out. We have to escalate." A pause. The voice on the other end said something sharp. Clara's eyes flicked toward the front of the plane. "I know it looks bad," she whispered. "But if we admit error now, it won't just be him we lose. Legal's already on alert." She listened again, then nodded. "Understood. I'll handle it." She ended the call and stepped out of the galley, face now set with a new expression. Something colder, more strategic. Nathaniel watched her return, his eyes unreadable. The back of the plane had grown oddly still, like the passengers sensed a change in atmospheric pressure without understanding the source. Clara walked straight to Ben, who was preparing service trays. "Come with me," she said tightly. He followed her to the front. Clara turned to the captain's door, knocked twice, and entered briefly. Less than a minute later, she emerged, her tone louder now. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, addressing the front cabin, "we're experiencing a minor delay due to a passenger discrepancy." Her words were calm, but Nathaniel heard the shift. Discrepancy. It was a loaded word, deliberately vague, designed to plant doubt. She walked down the aisle, stopping midway between first and business class. Another passenger began recording. She turned to the nearby crew intercom and activated a private line. Then she said the words, "He's trying to fake a boarding pass. There's a chance he forged it. He's becoming aggressive." She didn't know the mic was open. Ben, standing nearby, froze. His eyes darted to Nathaniel. So did several passengers. A wave of discomfort rippled through the cabin. The air tightened. The implications hung there like static. Dangerous, fraudulent, aggressive. Nathaniel didn't flinch, but others did. The woman in row 4 leaned toward her husband. "Did she just say forged ticket?" Another voice near the lavatory. "That man? I saw him show his ID, twice." A young man whispered to his friend, "She's trying to paint him as a threat." The cabin wasn't just confused anymore, it was divided. Nathaniel stood slowly, not to advance, not to protest, just to exist, to be seen. The silence in his section of the plane was deafening. Ben approached him, voice shaking. "Mr. Carter, Clara said she claimed—" "I know," Nathaniel said quietly. His hands were at his sides, palms relaxed, posture still. "She thinks she can flip the narrative before it flips itself." Ben looked around. "Passengers are filming. They heard her." Nathaniel nodded. "Good." Across the aircraft, Lindsay had gone pale. She looked at her phone, then at Clara, then at Nathaniel, now standing like a statue near the rear of business class. The confident smirk she'd worn since boarding had evaporated. Back in the terminal, Jennifer received the audio transcript from Clara's open mic. "Play it," she ordered. The line crackled. Then Clara's voice came through clearly. "He's trying to fake a boarding pass. There's a chance he forged it. He's becoming aggressive." Jennifer swore under her breath. "Timestamp that. Secure the audio. Notify legal." Another analyst approached. "We've got Clara's phone trace. She's been in contact with a private number routed through an encrypted relay. Doesn't match any airline protocols. Jennifer stared at the screen. So she's freelance now. She just created a security event, the analyst added. No, Jennifer corrected. She created a legal nightmare. Back on the plane, the captain emerged from the cockpit. His presence drew immediate attention. Clara stepped toward him. Captain, I've filed a formal concern about a passenger's credentials. He looked past her. Which passenger? She hesitated. Mr. Carter. The captain turned to Nathaniel. Sir, may I see your identification again? Nathaniel produced it wordlessly. Passport, boarding pass, and employee ID from Stratus Aviation Holdings. The captain reviewed each document, then looked up at Clara. These are valid. They match the manifest. And Mr. Carter is listed as a high-priority executive. Clara's mouth parted just slightly. Further, the captain continued, we have internal confirmation from operations that Mr. Carter is the majority shareholder in the parent company of this airline. The words landed like a detonation. Gasps, whispers. A phone dropped somewhere behind row 5. Lindsay stood up suddenly. What? Clara took a step back. He never said, he never identified. He didn't have to, the captain said firmly. Because the policy applies to everyone. And what you said over the intercom? He looked down. We'll discuss that after landing, if we take off. He turned to Nathaniel. Sir, do you wish to continue on this flight? Nathaniel looked at the faces around him, some ashamed, some still stunned, others beginning to record openly. Then he answered evenly, no. Ben Miller's hands were shaking as he scrolled through his phone, adrenaline surging through his veins. He had spent the last 45 minutes pretending to be neutral, pretending not to see, pretending that this was somehow just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It hadn't been for a while. The video was clear. It captured everything. Clara dismissing Nathaniel's boarding pass without a glance, leading him away from first class like an intruder, Lindsay reclining with champagne while mouthing smug remarks, and finally, Clara's damning statement through the open mic. He's trying to fake a boarding pass. There's a chance he forged it. He's becoming aggressive. It wasn't just biased. It wasn't just unethical. It was dangerous. Ben hit send. The file went straight to his manager at ground control. Within seconds, a response came through. Escalated to terminal command. Confirmed. Hold all internal action. We're coming aboard. Ben exhaled hard. He looked up toward Clara, who now stood just outside the cockpit door, rigid with tension. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her mask had slipped. The captain remained silent at the front, his arms crossed, clearly waiting for someone else to take the next step. Nathaniel Carter hadn't moved. He stood in the aisle, composed, a quiet storm in a gray hoodie. Lindsay, still seated in 1A, kept glancing between Clara and Nathaniel, as if trying to compute a new equation whose variables had suddenly changed. And then, Nathaniel walked forward, slowly, calmly. Passengers parted for him without a word. He stopped at row 2, where the older black woman who had been watching everything gave him a tiny nod of encouragement. He nodded back, just once. Then he reached into his backpack, pulled out a slim black card holder, and removed a single matte business card. He stepped into first class. All eyes followed. He approached Clara, who flinched slightly, not out of fear, but out of realization. Something about Nathaniel's posture, the unwavering stillness in his eyes, told her that whatever grip she thought she had on this flight was gone. Nathaniel held the card between 2 fingers and extended it to her. For the record, he said, voice low and clear, my seat assignment was never in question. But if you're still wondering who I am, this should help. Clara took the card like it was radioactive. Her eyes dropped to the name. Nathaniel Carter, Chairman and CEO, Stratus Aviation Holdings. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Nathaniel turned to the captain. You've been fair. Thank you for requesting ID rather than judgment. The captain nodded once, respectfully. Nathaniel faced the cabin. "For everyone who's been watching," he said, voice rising just slightly, "this isn't about first class. It's not about champagne or legroom. It's about how quickly we're willing to believe the worst about someone who doesn't look the way we expect." There was silence. Thick, weighted, electric. He looked at Lindsay. "You took my seat and assumed I was in the wrong. You were wrong." Lindsay shrank into her chair. The earlier defiance had evaporated. I didn't know who you were." "That's the point," Nathaniel replied. "You shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with basic respect." He turned toward Clara. "And your words weren't just inappropriate. They were defamatory. You accused a paying passenger of fraud, of being dangerous, on record." Clara's eyes widened. Nathaniel glanced at the ceiling, as if looking through it to the control tower. "They heard you." At that moment, the main cabin door opened. 2 security officers in plain uniform stepped inside, followed by Jennifer Maddox. The moment Clara saw Jennifer, her knees nearly buckled. Jennifer didn't raise her voice. She didn't even make eye contact with Clara. Instead, she approached Nathaniel and extended a hand. "Mr. Carter," she said formally, "we've reviewed the footage. On behalf of the Airport Authority and Stratus Holdings, I'd like to personally apologize for what you've endured." Nathaniel shook her hand. "Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate your speed. We're going to escort Ms. Jennings off the aircraft for questioning." Jennifer turned toward Clara, who had turned pale. "Please come with us." Clara stammered. "You don't understand. I was told—" "You'll have a chance to explain everything," Jennifer interrupted, "but not here." As Clara was led out, the cabin broke its silence. Someone clapped, then another, and another. Soon, the plane erupted. Not into loud cheering, but into a slow, steady applause. The kind that didn't celebrate vengeance, but vindication. Lindsay remained frozen in 1A, her face ashen. A passenger leaned across the aisle and whispered loudly, "I'd get off the plane if I were you." Lindsay fumbled for her bag but didn't move. Nathaniel turned back to the captain. "I think it's time we grounded this flight." The captain's eyes widened slightly. "Sir?" Nathaniel took out his phone and tapped a single command. Within seconds, his message reached the airline's central system. "Flight 2207 suspended pending review. Activate full fleet pause protocol. Echo escalation approved." Jennifer's phone buzzed. She looked down and nodded. "Done." Nathaniel turned back to the cabin, now silent again. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about how we move forward. From assumption to accountability. From silence to change." He looked to Ben, who stood near the back. "Thank you for speaking up." Ben nodded, eyes wide with a mix of awe and relief. Then, as Nathaniel returned to the aisle, the passengers parted again. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Nathaniel Carter stood in the narrow aisle of Flight 2207, the quiet applause still echoing faintly in his ears. Clara had just been escorted off the plane. Lindsay remained in 1A, pale and silent, her phone untouched on the armrest. Cameras were still rolling, some discreet, others blatant now. The entire cabin was a witness, and every passenger knew they were part of something larger than a flight delay. But Nathaniel wasn't done. Not yet. As Jennifer Maddox exited behind Clara and the security team, Nathaniel turned and tapped a message into his phone. "Trace confirmation. Follow Clara's comms. Find origin. Full internal cross-match." He hit send. Within seconds, a reply came back. "Confirmed. Clara's encrypted comms routed through internal node. Likely insider access. Investigating." Nathaniel's fingers paused mid-typing. Internal. He knew what that meant. Someone inside Stratos Aviation Holdings, his company, had enabled this. It hadn't just been about prejudice or a power trip. It had been orchestrated. He opened a secure channel and called a name that only a few in the company had access to. It rang once. "Mr. Carter?" came a gravelly voice. "We traced the instruction node. Internal employee credential, executive level. Logged in under proxy clearance." "Who?" Nathaniel asked coldly. We're narrowing. Preliminary ID points to James Rowe, Senior VP, Strategic Investments. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly. James Rowe, a legacy executive, clean record, always professional, always by the book, and a man who had recently pushed back hard against Nathaniel's plans to enforce an anti-bias charter across all Stratos subsidiaries. He had claimed it was too political and bad optics for investors. Nathaniel opened his eyes. It wasn't about optics anymore. It was about sabotage. Clara had been the front, but someone far higher had pulled the strings. Still standing in the aisle, Nathaniel dialed Jennifer again. Yes, she answered immediately. Clara's not the core. James Rowe orchestrated this. He used proxy clearance to stage an incident. Get me removed, create a scene, and trigger market doubt. Jennifer didn't respond for a beat. Then, they wanted stock instability. Nathaniel nodded to no one. A scandal involving me in public? Headlines write themselves. CEO ejected from own airline. Even if cleared later, the market hits first. We'll contain it, Jennifer said. Do you want a full board alert? No, he said. Not yet. He turned toward the front of the cabin, stepping forward until he was in full view of everyone again. The cameras were still up. He didn't care anymore. He tapped another command on his phone, this one coded, Ground all active flights under SAH control. Initiate full fleet review. Emergency status. Seconds later, Jennifer confirmed. System is responding. Fleet grounding in motion. We'll phase each aircraft into hold as soon as airspace clears. Nathaniel looked toward the front galley and said aloud, voice steady and clear, let's ground the aircraft. He paused, then added, all of them. The cabin was silent. Passengers stared at him, unsure whether they had heard correctly. Then a chime came from the intercom system. The captain's voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received final clearance to deplane. Please remain seated until the door is opened. We thank you for your patience during this unprecedented delay. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The decision had come from the top. And now, every aircraft under Stratos Aviation Holdings, 47 in total, was being ordered to land, to return to gates, to delay boarding until the internal rot had been exposed. Lindsay looked up at Nathaniel again, lips parted, eyes wide. You can't ground the whole company. Nathaniel met her gaze. I just did. You'll bankrupt yourself, she whispered. He shook his head. I'll bankrupt those who built their success on silence. A few rows behind her, someone whispered, damn. Nathaniel walked back toward the economy section, where Ben stood near the galley, stunned. You meant all of it, Ben said. I always do, Nathaniel replied. Passengers were beginning to rise now, murmuring, packing up, preparing to leave. The delay was over, but the consequences had just begun. Outside the aircraft, ground crews scrambled to redirect equipment. Inside terminals around the country, departure boards lit up with sudden, delayed, and return to gate notices across a dozen Stratos-owned brands. The media wouldn't miss it. That was the point. Back inside the plane, the teenage girl who had taken a photo earlier whispered to her mother, he grounded the whole airline just because they treated him like that. No, her mother corrected gently. He grounded it because they thought they could get away with it. Nathaniel exited the aircraft last. As he walked down the jet bridge, he passed by Lindsay, still seated, still frozen. She didn't speak. She didn't move. He didn't look back. Jennifer met him at the gate. Press is waiting. We can redirect them. Let them wait, he said. For once, they can write the story after we've finished it. A few paces later, he added, pull Rowe from the system. No contact. Freeze all his assets tied to SAH stock. I want him out before the markets open. Jennifer nodded. Done. Nathaniel paused, looking back once at the plane. The flight was over, but the reckoning had only just begun. In less than 1 hour, 52 aircraft bearing the logos of Stratus Aviation Holdings across 6 commercial brands were grounded. The images spread fast, planes rerouted to tarmacs, boarding gates sealed shut, and passengers standing stunned before departure boards flashing red with delays and cancellations. In New York, Chicago, Dallas, San Francisco, and Atlanta, frustrated travelers pulled out their phones. But this time, no one was angry at weather or overbookings or mechanical issues. They were watching a company take itself offline. And for many, it was the first time they had ever seen a corporation respond to injustice not with an apology, but with consequence. By the time Flight 2207's cabin emptied and Nathaniel Carter reached the executive terminal lounge, the story had already broken into national headlines. CEO grounds entire airline over discrimination scandal. Stratus halts flights, launches internal investigation. Power moves. Nathaniel Carter grounds fleet. Amid racial bias incident. Cable news anchors tripped over their intros. Twitter exploded. Reddit threads multiplied. Videos from the cabin were stitched into compilations, overlaid with dramatic captions. He showed his boarding pass. She called security anyway. This man owns 40% of the airline. They tried to move him to economy. By the 58th minute, Stratus Aviation Holdings' stock had dropped 7.8%. By the 61st, trading was temporarily halted. And Nathaniel Carter? He was sipping hot water with lemon, scrolling through a digital dashboard that showed every movement across his empire. Flights, passenger logs, comms traffic, legal alerts. His chief of staff, Angela, stood nearby. We've isolated 3 more internal accesses routed through James Rowe's proxy clearance. He wasn't acting alone. Keep digging, Nathaniel said, not looking up. Anyone who touched this gets flushed. Legacy doesn't shield corruption. Media wants a statement, she added. Half want to crucify you for disrupting air travel. The other half are already calling it historic. Let them argue, he said. We're not done. He turned the screen toward her. A cascading list of metrics blinked in real time. Employee retention risk, plus 12% passenger loyalty, net sentiment, 3%, plus 9% public trust index, MA's pending resolution outcome. They expected a PR crisis, he said. I gave them a systemic reset. Angela nodded. Markets are responding. Analysts are split. Half say it's reckless. The others say it's visionary. They're both right, Nathaniel said. Reckless is what it looks like when a system built to preserve comfort gets punched in the throat. Jennifer Maddox stepped into the room, phone still pressed to her ear. We've got international calls now. Transport ministers in the UK and Canada want to know if the grounding will affect code share operations. Tell them we're reactivating regionals within 36 hours, but they'll need to sign on to the new ethics charter. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. You're pushing the policy global? Nathaniel nodded. What's the point of cleaning one room in a filthy mansion? In real time, reports kept coming in. Flight attendants across the network were stepping forward, some admitting past bias incidents, others submitting videos, emails, even confidential memos that confirmed racial profiling had been discussed internally, tolerated, and in some cases encouraged in the name of brand image. One memo, dated 6 months earlier, read, "Passengers in premium cabins should reflect our values of professionalism, discretion, and alignment with core brand image. In unclear situations, favor loyal elite clients over irregular bookings." Nathaniel highlighted the line and forwarded it to legal with a single note. "This is our new lawsuit exhibit." Angela walked over with a tablet. "You need to see this." A new video had surfaced, not from Flight 2207, but from a flight 2 months prior, where another black passenger had been moved without explanation from business to economy after a platinum member complained. It had barely gone viral at the time. Now, viewed through the lens of Flight 2207, it exploded. Nathaniel leaned back, watching the screen in silence. Passengers, patterns, the same tactics, the same excuses, and always, always the same result. "You think we'll recover?" Angela asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "We're not here to recover. We're here to rebuild." She paused. "And if we lose investors?" "Then we lose the ones who only showed up for comfort," Nathaniel said. "And we gain the ones who show up for courage." Outside the lounge, a small group of press had gathered, not for the sound bites, just to watch. One reporter whispered to another, "This guy grounded an entire airline. Who does that?" Someone else answered, "Someone who's tired of being polite about being right." Meanwhile, inside FAA headquarters, a quiet conversation was underway. "If Stratus pulls this off," one regulator said, "we'll have to revisit our anti-discrimination protocols. We've been trying to update those for a decade." "Well," the first man said, "Nathaniel Carter just did it in 60 minutes." By the end of the day, the White House press secretary was fielding questions about transportation reform. Unrelated bills stalled in Congress were now being amended with last-minute clauses inspired by Nathaniel's actions. All because one man refused to sit in the wrong seat. In the terminal, travelers who had been delayed hours were being given hotel vouchers, meals, and handwritten apology notes, not from gate agents, but from regional VPs and COOs who had flown out to meet them. And still, the question echoed everywhere: who grounds an airline to make a point? But in Nathaniel Carter's mind, the point was never to make a statement. It was to start a ripple, and the waves were still spreading. By mid-morning the next day, the main terminal of Los Angeles International Airport looked less like a transit hub and more like the epicenter of a corporate earthquake. Rows of cameras lined the edge of the atrium. Boom mics hovered like vultures. Anchors in sleek suits rehearsed their intros while producers whispered frantically in their earpieces. No one had seen it coming. There had been no press advisory, no formal invitation. Just a sudden alert from airport authorities. Statement from Stratus Aviation Holdings, 10 o'clock a.m., Terminal C. And at exactly 10 o'clock a.m., Nathaniel Carter walked up to the podium. No entourage, no teleprompter, just a single black folder in hand and the same calm composure he'd maintained throughout the chaos of the last 24 hours. Behind him stood Angela, Jennifer Maddox, and a few key executives. Behind them, a digital screen bore the SAH logo, now paired with a new slogan: "Accountability takes altitude." He began without preamble. "I didn't intend to be here this morning. I intended to be in New York, reviewing final terms for a fleet expansion deal. But yesterday, something more important landed at our feet. The truth." He let that word sit. Flight 2207 was supposed to be routine. It became anything but. What happened on that aircraft was not an isolated error. It was a symptom, and I refuse to treat symptoms when we can operate on the disease. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters leaned in. Nathaniel opened the black folder and withdrew a single sheet. Effective immediately, Stratus Aviation Holdings is launching an independent investigation into all levels of our operations. This includes hiring, promotions, passenger treatment, incident reporting, and internal communications. He glanced up. But we will not be investigating ourselves. A ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. We are appointing an external, unaffiliated audit firm with full subpoena power. No redactions, no exceptions. They will be joined by a panel of civil rights experts, labor advocates, and former regulators. Their sole job: uncover the truth and recommend structural reform. More flashes, more whispers. And for the first time in aviation history, Nathaniel continued, we are inviting every employee at every level to anonymously submit experiences of bias, discrimination, or retaliation. The stories will be reviewed, and they will be addressed transparently. He stepped back slightly and nodded to Angela, who tapped a remote. The screen behind them changed. A new interface appeared, sleek, secure, titled Open Skies, a Culture of Transparency. This portal, Nathaniel said, goes live in 30 minutes. It will remain open until every voice is heard. A hand shot up from the front row. Mr. Carter, how will this affect operations? Will flights resume? Yes, Nathaniel said. Fleet reactivation begins this afternoon, but only after every team undergoes an emergency values alignment briefing. Is this a public relations move? Another reporter asked. A way to protect stock value? Nathaniel didn't flinch. If I cared about stock value over human value, I would have let the system hide this. I grounded a billion-dollar operation because I'd rather take a financial hit than allow abuse to fly under our flag. That was the quote. Dozens of reporters typed it out, lips moving silently as they committed it to memory. I'd rather take a financial hit than allow abuse to fly under our flag. Another hand rose. Has the federal government responded? Nathaniel nodded toward Jennifer, who stepped forward. We received communication from the Department of Transportation and the FAA early this morning. They've praised the action taken and requested to review our framework as a potential model for nationwide industry standards. More murmurs, more gasps. They've also asked, she added, that we host a summit on ethical aviation policy this fall, with representatives from every major carrier. Nathaniel took the mic again. And we'll host it, but not as a victory lap. We're not here to say, look how good we are. We're here to say, this should have happened sooner. A reporter at the back shouted, do you believe other airlines have the same problems? Nathaniel didn't blink. Yes, he let that sit, then added, and if they pretend otherwise, they're either lying or not looking closely enough. The room erupted. Social media lit up like dry grass in a wildfire. The hashtag #GroundedForChange trended globally. Influencers who'd never cared about aviation policy were reposting clips of Nathaniel's speech with captions like, finally, a CEO who gets it. Inside the White House press room, a reporter asked if the president had seen the statement. Yes, the press secretary replied, and we're in full agreement with Mr. Carter's position. Respect must be non-negotiable at 30,000 feet. Later that day, two rival airlines quietly updated their internal training protocols. Another announced the creation of a passenger dignity task force. But it was too late to beat Nathaniel to the punch. He had redefined the game. At Stratus HQ, messages poured in from employees across the globe. Some congratulated. Others confessed. Many simply said, thank you. Pilots reported passengers clapping as they entered the cabin. Flight attendants said they felt for the first time that their silence wasn't mandatory. And somewhere, in a quiet suburb of Oregon, a woman named Lindsay Caldwell deactivated her social media accounts and began Googling implicit bias training near me. Inside the airport terminal, Nathaniel stepped down from the podium and walked straight through the crowd. No security guard shielded him. No assistant ran interference. Passengers, real ones, stopped him to shake his hand. A grandmother said, you made us proud. A father said, my son saw you on TV. He said, that's what real power looks like. Nathaniel smiled, but he wasn't done. This wasn't about one flight anymore. It was about building something that could never be grounded again. Hours after the press conference, Nathaniel Carter found himself in a rare pocket of solitude. He stood in a quiet airport lounge, the kind reserved for executives and diplomats. But today, it was empty, cleared by request. Outside the window, the Los Angeles skyline shimmered in the distance, the smog caught in morning light like a veil half lifted. Angela had offered to stay. He asked her not to. Some memories required silence. He sipped his tea, staring past his reflection in the glass, and let himself remember. He was 15 when it happened the first time. He had been accepted into a prestigious summer business camp at a university in Connecticut, one of those ivy-covered institutions where everyone had a last name that sounded like a law firm. His father had driven him there in a battered pickup truck with one working door handle and a trunk full of hand-me-down suits 2 sizes too big. They were early, as always. Nathaniel had wandered into the conference building to ask for directions. The room he walked into wasn't marked. It was large, filled with suits and spreadsheets and leather portfolios. He stepped inside and someone turned. Sorry, deliveries go to the side entrance. That was all it took. No one asked who he was. No one gave him time to speak. He was black, young, carrying a backpack. They saw the shape of him and decided what he must be. He had left without a word. His father was still in the truck when Nathaniel returned. You get lost? He asked, folding the map he always refused to replace with a GPS. "I found the wrong room," Nathaniel said. His father had looked at him, really looked. "They say something." Nathaniel hesitated, then nodded. His father didn't ask what. He just tapped the steering wheel once, then said, "Power doesn't raise its voice, son. It moves quietly. You don't need to fight every slight. Just remember every one." That day, something settled inside him, not bitterness, blueprint. Years later, at his first real job, Nathaniel had been mistaken for janitorial staff. Twice. At 26, he walked into a boardroom to pitch a tech acquisition and was asked if he could bring in more coffee. At 31, a hotel concierge escorted him out of the VIP lounge while he waited for a client. At 33, he was asked by a junior analyst whether he was here to fix the Wi-Fi. Every time, he said nothing. Every time, he remembered his father's voice. "You don't need to fight every slight. Just remember every one." And so he did. He built Stratus Aviation Holdings with precision, acquisition by acquisition, merger by merger. He bought quietly, invested smartly, built networks of trust and loyalty that didn't depend on how he looked or how loudly he spoke. Until one day, his name alone made rooms go silent. Until yesterday, Flight 2207 had been the final insult, dressed in airline protocol and wrapped in professional smiles. But it wasn't the worst he had experienced. It was just the one that came last, and that mattered, because the silence he had maintained for 30 years wasn't cowardice. It was timing, it was planning, it was honoring a promise. He reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small photo, creased at the edges, the colors faded but intact. It was him and his father in front of that old truck, taken on the day of the camp. His dad wore a short-sleeved button-up, one collar half upturned, and a grin that seemed to say, "Let them underestimate you." Nathaniel traced the edge of the photo with one thumb. 30 years, Dad," he whispered. "I kept my mouth shut for 30 years." He looked back out the window at the grounded jets. "But I moved, quietly, just like you said." His phone buzzed. It was Angela. He answered, but didn't speak. She knew not to waste words. "Two things," she said. "First, the Open Skies portal just passed 45,000 submissions in 12 hours. Employees, passengers, even former execs. People are telling their stories." Nathaniel closed his eyes. "And second," Angela added, "James Rowe resigned. No statement, just walked out. Security's already pulled his credentials." Nathaniel didn't smile. He just nodded once. "Good." He ended the call and tucked the phone away. Then he walked to the edge of the lounge where a small plaque hung on the wall, barely noticed by travelers. It read, "In memory of those who broke barriers in silence so others could speak freely." He stood there for a long time, not for the cameras, not for the optics, just to remember what it had cost to reach this point and why he had waited so long to act. On the other side of the country, a young black student at a regional airport pulled out her phone and showed her mother the news. "Look," she said, "that's the CEO who grounded the airline." Her mother nodded. "The one they tried to move to economy?" "Yeah. He didn't shout, he didn't fight, he just made a call." The mother smiled. "That's what power looks like." And the girl, eyes wide with wonder, said quietly, "I want to be like that." 1 year later, the ballroom at the National Civil Justice Gala was packed. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished glass tables, and a full orchestra played in the corner, soft enough not to intrude, loud enough to mark the gravity of the evening. The room was filled with attorneys, lawmakers, activists, CEOs, and journalists. Everyone had come to witness a moment that felt larger than the ceremony itself. The keynote speaker took the stage and paused. The crowd quieted. Then, with reverence, she said, "Tonight, we honor a man who changed an industry by saying nothing until it truly mattered." The lights dimmed slightly as a single spotlight fell on the podium. She continued, "Nathaniel Carter has declined to attend this evening. True to form, he asked that we not focus on him, but on the message." A murmur of smiles and quiet nods passed through the room. "But he did send a letter, and with his permission, I'd like to read it now." She opened a simple white envelope and unfolded the page inside. The paper wasn't printed on gold leaf stationery, no embossed logo, just plain text. She began, "To those gathered tonight, thank you. I am deeply honored by this award, but I believe justice, when truly earned, doesn't require a stage. It requires a shift, a lasting one, not just in how we respond, but in how we prevent, not just in punishment, but in progress. I didn't ground an airline to make headlines. I grounded it to make a promise to my father, a promise to myself, and a promise to the countless people who've been told, subtly or explicitly, that they don't belong. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just refuses to move, and sometimes that's enough to make the world shift around it. With gratitude, Nathaniel Carter." Silence followed, not because the audience didn't know how to react, but because they did. A standing ovation rose not from obligation, but from understanding. People clapped not just for what he'd done, but for what he'd chosen not to do, for refusing the spotlight and letting the system itself speak. Across the nation, the impact of that year had become woven into the fabric of multiple industries. 3 new federal policies had been enacted around bias reporting in transportation. 2 major airlines had followed Stratus in launching internal whistleblower portals, and nearly every major carrier had quietly updated their staff training procedures to include a mandatory course titled Passenger Dignity, Lessons from Flight 2207. The incident had become a benchmark in corporate training programs, civil rights courses, and even media ethics panels. But for Nathaniel, it was never about being remembered. It was about never forgetting. The newly launched Stratus transcontinental route, Flight 001 from Los Angeles to London, was preparing for its maiden voyage. The aircraft, a sleek new model named the Carter class, was parked at the gate beneath a banner that read, "Redefined luxury, reclaimed dignity." The first-class cabin was unlike any other in the sky. Ergonomic seats, curated menus, silent service zones. But the feature that caught every traveler's attention was something far simpler. On every headrest, stitched with precision, was a single phrase, "You belong here, no proof required." It didn't shout, it didn't brag. It just sat there, quiet and unshakable. A young boy boarded with his mother, eyes wide as they passed through the glowing cabin. He pointed at the seat's inscription, "Mom, what does that mean?" She smiled. "It means they don't need to know your name to treat you like you matter." The boy paused, then nodded. "That's good." He settled into his seat like it was his right, because now it was. Elsewhere, in a quiet suburb, Nathaniel Carter sat on the porch of a modest lake house, legs crossed, a steaming mug of black tea in one hand. No camera crews, no staff, just the chirping of morning birds and the occasional ripple across the water. Angela had sent him a video of the gala, but he hadn't watched it. He didn't need to. He already knew what they'd say. His daughter, Alicia, stepped outside, wrapped in a sweater, holding her own mug. "You skipping another award?" Nathaniel grinned. "I've made a career out of it." She sat beside him. "People are still posting the headrest quote. It's gone viral again." He sipped his tea. "That's good. Let it speak louder than I ever did." Alicia looked at him. "Do you regret not showing up to these things?" "No," he said simply. "I showed up when it mattered." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Alicia added, "You know what they call you now, right?" He raised an eyebrow. "The man who grounded injustice." Nathaniel chuckled. "Catchy." "Better than guy who missed his flight," she teased. They laughed together, quiet, sincere. Then, as the sun rose over the lake, Nathaniel Carter leaned back in his chair, took a deep breath, and allowed himself a moment of peace. Not because the fight was over, but because he had proven, once and for all, that silence, when purposeful, could be more powerful than any microphone.